Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us deep into the ancient, mist-enshrouded groves of what is now Big Basin, Redwood State Park in Santa Cruz County, California. This iconic region, famous for its towering coastal redwoods and rugged terrain, has long captivated the hearts and imaginations of explorers, naturalists, and pioneers alike. Big Basin Redwood State Park is nestled in the coastal ranges of Santa Cruz County. The terrain is dominated by ancient redwoods, deep moss-laden groves, and winding trails that follow babbling creeks through cool, damp clearings. The climate here is characterized by mild, wet winters and dry, sun-drenched summers, a pattern that nurtures the lush vegetation and supports a vibrant, albeit sometimes perilous, wildlife community. The park's ecological tapestry is as rich as its history. Notable vegetation in the region includes coastal redwood, Douglas fir, and tan bark oak, which tower over dense stands of manzanita, Pacific wax myrtle, and snowberry. Seasonal nutrients provided by huckleberry, salal, and thimbleberry reveal their offerings throughout the summer to bears and other forest denizens. The ancient forests of Big Basin teem with life. Historically, these woodlands supported a diverse array of animals, from small rodents and songbirds to the larger formidable predators that roamed freely. In the mid-19th century, both black bears and the mighty California grizzly were part of this wild community. Encounters with the large bears were a real hazard for early settlers navigating these remote wilds. At the heart of today's narrative is William Waddell, a pioneer whose life and untimely death have been etched into California's storied past. In 1875, as waves of settlers ventured into the uncharted wilderness of California, Waddell embodied the rugged determination and adventurous spirit of the era. His neighbors described him as a hard-working, resourceful man involved in logging, mining, and the early development of the region, who ventured into the depths of the redwood forest in search of opportunity and a new beginning. On Friday, October 1st, 1875, 57-year-old William Waddell was heading up deer hunting with his friend John Bradley. He came to California to rebuild his life after suffering a financial catastrophe in Missouri. Being an industrious and entrepreneurial man, Waddell first worked at a lumber mill and then started his own. Eventually broadening his business into several different mills, Waddell purchased a gold mine and built a wharf. Being in the wilds of the rapidly growing state of California, Waddell still lived close to the land, relying on gathering edible plants and harvesting game for sustenance. The men began their hunting trip by departing Waddell's lumber mill and hiking into the hills above it. They crossed over Steele Gulch and split up to cover more ground. Bradley went round the hill, while Waddell and his dog, whom we will call Frosty, continued up the ravine to try to find a good place to look for game. After topping the small ridge, Waddell and Frosty stumbled upon a deer carcass. It looked like it had been killed by a cougar, and he wondered if the cat was still laid up nearby. He examined the surroundings for clues of where the cat had gone, but Frosty picked up a scent trail, which drew his attention. The dog and the hunter picked their way through thick brush as the scent trail climbed steep terrain. For a few hundred yards, dense plant life obscured anything beyond a few yards from the two, and Waddell paused to catch his breath as Frosty continued to follow the trail. Waddell listened as the barking dog began to fade away. Then Frosty's barking turned panicked and grew louder. It was clear that the dog was headed back toward Waddell, and quickly. But there was no way the man could know what was following his dog. As soon as Frosty came into view, Waddell could see a huge grizzly bear sow trailing him from a few yards, with her cub in tow. The sow was hopping mad, and she didn't slow down when Waddell came into view. Frosty was hoping for some shelter and protection from Waddell, but the man could do nothing to protect either of them. Judging by the era, Waddell was likely carrying either a hawk and muzzle loader or a Sharps breech-loading rifle to hunt deer. The problem with these firearms is that they require a lengthy reloading period between the shots. Given a grizzly bear could cover several hundred yards, by the time Waddell reloaded after shooting, his hunting rifle was nearly useless in stopping an injured or angry sow grizzly before she tore him limb from limb. As Frosty ran past Waddell, he could see her eyes change focus from the dog to him. She closed on him before he could pull the trigger and clamped her jaws onto his thigh, knocking him to the ground. As she tossed her head back and forth, she slashed at him with her claws in sweeping, broad swipes that tore his flesh. Her 2-inch canines punched 4 deep puncture wounds into the flesh of his leg, and deep wound channels were ripped into the muscle, which quickly filled with blood. At this point, Frosty decided to rejoin the battle. He charged in and nipped at the bear's hind and heels, distracting it from further injuring Waddell. The enraged sow spun on her heels and dashed toward Frosty, who was now acting as a great relief to Waddell. The two disappeared down the mountain, with the grizzly cubs still following the sow. Now bleeding severely and in tremendous pain, Waddell knew the only way he could signal Bradley was to use his rifle. He fired into the air in hopes that his friend would respond. A few hundred yards away, Bradley didn't hear the ruckus raised by the barking dog, growling bear, or yelling man, but the rifle report rang out, echoing off the hillsides. He quickly turned toward Waddell's location and parted brush until arriving at the attack site. Bradley arrived at Waddell's side and could see his friend was in pain and injured severely. He examined Waddell's lacerated thigh muscle and could see deep purple bruising already setting in. After helping Waddell to his feet, Bradley could see his friend was in no shape to hike out. He rounded up Waddell's horse and helped him into the saddle before the two pointed their horses toward home and the help they could find there. Doc Anderson looked over Waddell's wounds shortly after the men arrived. He cleaned several puncture wounds and gashes in Waddell's thigh and numerous bites and scratches all over his arms and hands. The doctor noted that the man's injuries were severe, but under ordinary circumstances were not life-threatening. The wound channels ripped deep into Waddell's thigh tissues, however, were the perfect breeding ground for a bacteria commonly found in the mouth of bears. These bacteria thrive in the dead blood and tissues surrounding a bear bite, and Waddell had developed a bad case of pyemia, or blood infection. In an attempt to save Waddell's life, the doctor amputated Waddell's infected right arm. Had his attack occurred after 1930, when antibiotics became widely available, he may have lived. Waddell's arm was buried along the coast several days before he succumbed to his wounds. When mourners tried to dig up his arm to bury it with the rest of his corpse, the arm was no longer where it had been buried. This added to the lore surrounding Waddell's death, and has been featured in Halloween promotions in the modern area today. News of the tragedy spread quickly among the small communities and camps scattered throughout Santa Cruz County. The loss of William Waddell resonated deeply with those who had come to respect the immense power of the redwood forests and the creatures that roamed them. His death became emblematic of the broader struggles between human ambition and nature's indomitable will, a narrative that has since been preserved in historical texts and local folklore. Today, William Waddell's ranch has been incorporated into Big Basin Redwood State Park. The park is celebrated as a natural sanctuary and a tribute to California's environmental legacy. The state's once abundant bear populations have been dramatically altered by history, serving as a reminder of the long and often tragic relationship between humans and wildlife on the frontier. The story of William Waddell remains a poignant reminder of the immense power of nature and the perils faced by those who dared to venture into its embrace. His tragic fate, etched into the annals of California history, serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to respect the delicate balance between human progress and the natural world. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Did Frosty's behavior contribute to Waddell's attack, or did he save the man's life? If Waddell and Bradley had stayed closer together during their hunt, could they have killed the bear before it could attack either of them? Was Waddell complacent about the possibility of running into a bear, or was it just part of the risk of life in the frontier of early California? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.